How you doing today? It's Friday about 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm on vacation, September the 2nd. And today we're going to talk about Charlie. It was 1984, and I had joined a Christian band called Armament. It was a heavy metal Christian band. It was real popular at the time. And there were some great fellas in there, had a lot of fun. Did some huge concerts. I mean, thousands of people headlining and come to see us. And, a lot of people come forward. Lots of good stuff going on. But one of the things we did was we had a special calling to reach out to the kids with cerebral palsy. Now, they had a foundation in Southern California called the Cerebral Palsy Spastic Children's Foundation. When we got together with them, it was a larger organization. They had a good sized hospital with 500 or 600 kids that were residents there that had cerebral palsy of different, different levels. Now, cerebral palsy, you can understand how that works. Cerebral palsy is something that you're born with, and your brain can't handle any of the motor functions. You're walking, you're talking, jaw moving, arms. But the rest of the brain works flawlessly. And what a lot of people don't understand about cerebral palsy is that although the kids are in chairs and they have no control over their body, their brains are very smart and very functional. They're usually some of the smartest people in the world, but you just can't, and they can hear you and they can understand you. You don't have to speak slow, how are you? You don't have to do that because, they have fully functioning brains in the thought process of it. And a lot of people don't know this. And we, they had a huge facility there, and we did some benefit concerts, and one of them, about 3,000 people showed up to it. And all the kids with cerebral palsy would sit in the front two rows. So there'd be like 100 wheelchairs in the front two rows. And this went on for quite a while. We did a lot of work with them, learned a lot of stuff. But later on, when I was called out of that ministry in about 92, I had broken out on my own. I had a few songs on the radio, and I was really trying to be that CCM, But God called me out of that, and he said, what I want you to do is go to churches and be a worship leader, but only for a short time. You will go to each church. I will put you in a worship leading position. And then when you reach one person, you will reach one person that will change the world for that church. Then I will call you out and bring you to a different church. Now, this is a ministry that he wanted me to do, and I did it for a long time. I would go to churches, and it was amazing when God called me to a church, I was there, and by the second or third week, I was on the worship team. Because God was putting me there. And this was not an easy task. When he told me in 1992 that he wanted me to step out of trying to be a professional musician, I cried for 2 days because I had spent all of my life trying to be a professional musician. That's all I ever wanted to do. I never wanted to do anything else except be a professional musician. But since I always listened to the Lord, I said, okay. And one of the first churches he called me to was a little Christian Missionary Alliance church in Santa Rosa, California. They met in a warehouse building. I mean, they had it fixed up very nice. I mean, it's a nice church. You walk in and you know, nice mezzanine and a beautiful sanctuary. And I was there, and after a couple of weeks, I was on the worship team, you know, leading the songs, leading the music. And there was this one guy in the back. Every Sunday, about a half hour before the service started, this couple would drive up in a van, you know, great big van, and, you know, lower the plate down and would wheel this huge, you know, automatic wheelchair and lower him down, and they would roll him into the sanctuary and sit him in the back corner. And it was a young man with cerebral palsy, had severe cerebral palsy, to the point of where they had to, you know, his arms were strapped. His arms were strapped down. His head had a strap on it because, you know, their mind doesn't control the motor functions and they can get wild and hurt themselves. So he was strapped down. He was back in his chair like this and strapped down with his head strapped down. Didn't talk. You know, very few people with cerebral palsy do talk. Some of them do, but very few. And nobody said anything. You know, nobody blamed these parents because, this kid was probably in his early 20s, and the church knew that, you know, the parents just needed a break. So, you know, he'd roll him in, and he would sit there for, the service was a couple hours. There was 2 services, and sometimes he would sit through both of them. And the parents would come back afterwards and, you know, pick him up and roll him away and bring him back the next week. And like I said, the church didn't say anything because they knew that parents need a break. I mean, that's a full-time job. You know, so we imagine they would go out and, you know, maybe have breakfast and do some grocery shopping and, you know, just have a little peaceful time to themselves. And this went on for a couple of months. I mean, I was there for 3 or 4 months. And, you know, I would walk by, and, you know, knowing that they could understand everything you said, I would talk to Charlie, and I was like, "Hey, Charlie, how you doing?" And I was always, you know, tap him, you know, rub him, tap him on his arm like this. And you could see the smile in his eyes. You know, he would smile with his eyes, and you could see that, you know. And everybody else would walk in, "Hey, Charlie, how you doing?" And, you know. One particular Sunday, you know, a couple months into this, you know, we were singing in an especially slow song, you know, called "Beautiful," and, you know, it went. It's a very simple song. I think it was from a charity church mouse video or something that my daughter used to watch, and it was a simple chorus. It went, "Beautiful, beautiful, Jesus is beautiful, and Jesus makes beautiful things of my life, carefully touching me, causing my eyes to see that Jesus makes beautiful things of my life." And, you know, I was playing it in the front, and the lights were turned down. And, you know, I would pick a verse and, you know, pray a little bit. And about the 3rd time through it, you know, I wasn't paying attention. I was worshiping. I was praising. And we heard this noise in the back. And, you know, and I looked over at Charlie, and you could hear, like just, you know, just really loud. And when people turned around, they had found out his arm restraints were gone. His head restraint was gone. Okay, the straps were removed, and he can't remove these straps, okay? And nobody there would remove these straps because they're afraid to remove the straps, honestly. But we look back, and Charlie's hands were in the air like this, and his head was up. he had tears running from his eyes, and he was worshiping God. He was praising God with all he was worth. And people were blown away. It's just blown away. Like, hey, Charlie. And I said, yeah, keep singing. Keep singing. So we went through that song, longer than we ever do a little short chorus like that. And after that, I explained to the congregation how cerebral palsy works. I think God had taken us through that with that band and the Spastic Children's Foundation, specifically to teach me how cerebral palsy works and how smart these kids are in their brains. And I explained that to him, that he's not dangerous. He wouldn't purposely hit anybody, but he has no control over his motor functions. And I put my guitar down and I walked back and I gave Charlie a hug. I put his arms on me and I could feel the tears. And even, this affects me even today, because it was just amazing how God can work through one person. I'm going to tell you what, affecting one person can change the entire world of a church. It was long after that, when his parents came up that afternoon, we told them what happened, and they were blown away. They were completely blown away. And and what happened in the following months was what was amazing. People started talking to Charlie. People started talking to Charlie's parents. Charlie's parents started coming to church. And 3 days a week, somebody would go to Charlie's house, somebody from the church, and sometimes 4 or 5 of the youth group would go to Charlie's house. They would read to him, they would sing with him, they would watch some TV, Christian programs on TV, and just spend time with him. And his parents got to see this, and his parents got a break during the week so they could come to church. And they reached out, and the whole church became involved with Charlie and the parents, and word got out, and the church grew. And other kids with cerebral palsy came to the church, and they were all rolled to the front of the church. Charlie was no longer in the back corner. Charlie was in the front row every Sunday with his parents. And all this came about because God asked me to step out of the ministry I was in and do this. There's more stories, but that's one of the best ones. Till next time, love God, keep your coffee warm.